The first time I saw her, I was convinced she was not entirely human. That's a cliché, I know. But in my line of work aboard the exploration cruiser Ardent Horizon, clichés often turned out to be truths. Her name was Lyra, and she appeared on the observation deck of Station Sigma 7 as if she had materialized from the starlight itself. I had spent years traveling through uncharted sectors of the Andromeda Fringe, cataloging flora, fauna, and the occasional sentient species. Humans, most of the time, were predictable. Not her. She wasn't tall, maybe 5'7", but there was a grace in the way she moved, silent, fluid, as if the very air responded to her presence. Her eyes were the sort of amber that caught the reflection of distant suns and made you think you were staring into a living nebula. I couldn't stop staring. Days passed, and our interactions were brief, rarely more than casual nods and technical exchanges about environmental scans. Yet, every time she spoke, even the most trivial words felt layered with meaning. She was part of the xenobiology team, though no one could explain why her presence carried an authority that extended beyond her rank. I remember the exact moment I realized I liked her. It wasn't during a daring mission, nor in some dramatic life-or-death moment. It was in the quiet hum of the hydroponics bay, surrounded by alien orchids that glowed faintly in the dark. She had her hands full of delicate pollen sacs, studying them under a portable scanner, and I, for some reason, felt the urgent need to tell her. I like you, I said, heart hammering against my ribcage like a desperate drum. She didn't laugh. That was unexpected. Most humans would have chuckled, brushed it off, or felt awkward. But Lyra simply looked at me, her amber eyes narrowing slightly, as if considering the weight of my words. Then, calmly, she did something unthinkable. She reached out and touched my arm. The contact was light, almost ceremonial, yet it carried an undeniable authority. My chest tightened. It wasn't flirtation, it was acknowledgement. Acceptance. "Follow me," she said. I did, more out of instinct than thought. She led me through corridors I didn't recognize, past labs and maintenance shafts, until we arrived at a door I had never seen before. With a passcode and what I later realized was a biometric scan of her own unique DNA, the door slid open, revealing a chamber that defied explanation. Inside was a vessel, not a ship, but a living structure. It pulsed gently, organic curves glowing with a soft luminescence. My mind raced. "What is this?" I whispered. She smiled faintly, almost amused that I hadn't figured it out. "It's a repository, a collection of consciousnesses from across our galaxy. Some human, some not. Some something else entirely." Her words were precise, but they carried an emotional weight I couldn't place. I stepped inside, my senses overwhelmed by the subtle vibrations underfoot, the faint scent of ozone mixed with something floral. "You knew this all along?" I asked. "I've always known," she replied. "And now you know too. But knowing doesn't mean understanding. And understanding comes with responsibility." I was barely keeping up. "What responsibility?" She tilted her head, her hair brushing against her shoulder. "The responsibility of choice. And you, human, have made one by admitting your feelings. Not everyone is allowed in here. Not everyone is ready." I swallowed hard. The air seemed thicker now, charged with an energy that set every nerve on fire. Ready for what? Lyra stepped closer, her hand hovering over a panel on the vessel's wall. To be part of something greater than yourself. To protect, to guide, to love, in a sense humans rarely understand. Her words made my stomach knot. Love? This was not a casual confession of romantic interest. This was an offer to merge my existence with a living archive of civilizations. I hesitated. I I don't know if I can. Do you trust me? She interrupted. There was no accusation, only a demand for truth. I nodded. My entire life had led me to this moment of utter vulnerability, and somehow I trusted her more than I trusted myself. She smiled. Then, without another word, she activated the vessel. A wave of bioluminescent light washed over me, searing yet gentle, invasive yet comforting. I felt my consciousness stretch, intertwine with the chamber, as if I were both myself and something infinitely larger. Time became meaningless. I saw worlds being born, civilizations rising and falling, and the fragile beauty of life in its most raw, unfiltered form. And through it all, Lyra's presence was constant, a steady anchor in the chaos. When it ended, I found myself back in the corridor, her hand still resting lightly on my arm. My head spun with new knowledge, new empathy, new something. You're different now, she said. Not just because you've seen what few humans have, but because you've chosen to act, to care, to be more than you were. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. My mind, once a simple machine of human logic, now pulsed with echoes of entire civilizations. I had glimpsed infinity, and yet she was the only constant that made it feel tangible. Then came the unthinkable part. She leaned in, and for a brief moment, the barriers between human and something other dissolved completely. She kissed me, not as an experiment, not as a display, but as a declaration of trust, of connection, of something I could barely comprehend, but knew I would never forget. When we finally pulled apart, she gave me a look that conveyed both warning and promise. This changes everything, she said.
It did.
In the following weeks, I struggled to integrate my newfound awareness with the mundane realities of station life. Conversations with other crew members felt trivial. Decisions about resource allocation or scan trajectories seemed meaningless compared to the knowledge I now carried. Yet, through it all, Lyra was there, an anchor, a guide, a reminder of why I had chosen this path. One day, a distress signal came from a nearby uncharted system. A derelict vessel, ancient and massive, was emitting an energy signature that threatened to destabilize the star it orbited. Standard protocol called for a remote scan minimal engagement, but I knew better. I could feel the echoes of lives trapped within that ship, like a resonance in the void. Lyra agreed with my instinct, but her expression was grave. You're risking everything, she said. Not everything, I replied. Not if we do this together. We piloted the ardent horizon into the heart of the system, navigating through electromagnetic storms and gravitational anomalies. As we approached the derelict, the ship's scale became apparent, larger than anything humanity had ever built, yet clearly constructed with purpose, intention, even care. Inside, we found the remnants of an alien civilization preserved in stasis fields. Their technology was far beyond ours, their knowledge stored in crystalline matrices that hummed with energy. And at the center of it all, a core pulse that mirrored the vessel Lyra had shown me. It's a repository, too, I whispered. Like yours. She nodded, placing her hand over mine on the console. And it's unstable. If it collapses, the energy will destroy the system. We have to stabilize it together. Hours passed in tense synchronization. Lyra guided me with patience and precision, her hand occasionally brushing mine, sending subtle waves of reassurance. Finally, with a shudder that reverberated through the hull, the energy stabilized. The derelict systems hummed in perfect resonance. We sat back, breathing heavily. We did it, I said, awestruck. Lyra's amber eyes met mine, and for a fleeting moment, The weight of everything we had just accomplished seemed secondary to the connection between us. "We did," she echoed. From that moment on, nothing was the same. Our relationship, if it could be called that, defied simple definitions. We were partners, yes, but also something far more profound, a merging of purpose, awareness, and consciousness that transcended human limitations. Months later, while cataloging a newly discovered biosphere on a rogue planet, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "Why me?" Lyra paused, her expression unreadable. Then softly, "Because you dared to say the words." Most humans would have laughed, dismissed it, or walked away. But you acknowledged a connection. And sometimes, acknowledging is all it takes to change everything. I realized then that her actions, the unthinkable, the moment that had altered the course of my life, were as much about testing my capacity for courage and trust as they were about anything else. By simply listening, by simply allowing myself to be vulnerable, I had opened a door that few could even perceive. We continued our explorations, venturing further into the unknown, encountering civilizations both benevolent and hostile. Each mission tested us. Each challenge strengthened the bond forged in that quiet chamber of the vessel. And through it all, the human element, our capacity for empathy, bravery, and love, remained. My life and humanity's had been forever changed by a moment of honesty, a touch of courage, and the unthinkable actions of a being who is more human than most humans would ever be. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and violet, I turned to Lyra. For years, I had faced the unknown, wrestled with the vastness of the galaxy, and glimpsed the fragility of countless civilizations. But nothing had prepared me for the quiet power of this moment, the profound simplicity of standing beside someone who had forever changed the course of my life. "You didn't just change me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You changed everything." Lyra's amber eyes glimmered in the fading light, her expression serene yet impossible to fully read. "No," she replied softly, "you changed yourself. You were brave enough to speak, to choose, to act. That courage, that's what made the unthinkable possible." I realized then that the unthinkable wasn't just what she had done for me, it was what we had become together. Two beings, human and more than human, bound not by biology but by trust, understanding, and the choices that had defined us. The station's observation deck was silent except for the hum of distant machinery and the soft whisper of the wind from outside. I felt the weight of all we had experienced, the civilizations we had touched, the lives we had preserved, the knowledge we now carried. And through it all, the human spark, the courage to connect, to care, to love, had endured. Lyra reached for my hand, and I took it without hesitation. Her touch was no longer just acknowledgement. It was partnership, promise, and a future unfolding. "Whatever comes next," she said, "we face it together." And in that quiet, infinite moment, I understood something profound. Sometimes, the smallest act, admitting how you feel, can ripple across the universe. Sometimes, the person who seems impossibly distant can become the catalyst for extraordinary change. I squeezed her hand, feeling a warmth that no star, no galaxy, no repository of knowledge could ever replicate. "Together," I echoed. As the last light faded and stars emerged to claim the sky, I knew one undeniable truth. Life, love, and courage were not separate from the cosmos. They were the cosmos. And we, human and beyond, had become its living proof. The universe was vast, infinite, and unpredictable. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what lay ahead. Because we were ready. Together, We were unstoppable.